Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.
And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And today we have a very special guest this morning. All our guests are special, but today we have a touch more special than ordinarily. And believe me, it's all about corruption, it's all about autocracy, and it's all about that wonderful word that the whole world appears to be searching for, democracy. And to discuss that is President Mohamed Nasheed, the former head of state of the Republic of the Maldives. Very good morning to you, President Nasheed.
Good morning, sir, and thank you very much. It's nice to be here in Colombo.
It's a great pleasure for our group and for my program to have you here. And thank you for being up so early. Your driver has managed to get you here on time.
My pleasure. I try to get up early for my morning jog and exercise.
Very good. Now then, a journalist from the Maldives has said that the Maldives is being sold out. It has been stolen bit by bit. And another one says that paradise has been conquered by corruption and autocracy. How do you respond to these rather serious charges?
Well, unfortunately, during the last few years, we've been very, very unfortunate. Corruption has become rampant. The government has sold a number of islands to the private sector, and the receipts, the funds for these sales, did not go into government accounts.
Yes.
They clearly went into private accounts, and some of the checks, at least $1 million, we know has gone into President Yamin's bank account in Maldives Islamic Bank.
Right.
And there's also been a number of accusations on money laundering. And these accusations are again very serious. So corruption has become very rampant. Meanwhile, investments are low, inflation is high, employment is low. The World Bank and the IMF has classified our economy as fragile. The only two other economies in that state apparently are South Sudan and Afghanistan.
Right.
We are on the road to become unstable. Right. And if we go along these lines, and if we continue along these lines, unfortunately, this is going to have an impact on the tourism trade as well, and the fisheries trade.
And these will obviously also have some impact on Sri Lanka now.
Well, it will have a very big impact on Sri Lanka. We have a lot of Sri Lankans assisting us in our development effort. The middle-level employment, middle-level management in the Maldives is very often Sri Lankan, especially in the tourism industry, accountants, managers, restaurant chefs, and so on. And also, as you know, Sri Lanka owns about 15 to 20% of the tourism industry in the Maldives. So any impact on our economy is going to have a severe impact on receipts in Sri Lanka as well. It has always been the case, when it is good for Sri Lanka, it's good for the Maldives. When it's good for the Maldives, it's good for Sri Lanka as well. So this situation, I am hopeful that Sri Lanka will be focused and mindful about our predicament, and then you would also assist us in our misfortune.
Now then, I just want to make this point in case our legal people are having butterflies. We obviously, there's various claims being made here about the existing political hierarchy in the Republic of Maldives, and I'm sure that President Nasheed knows what he's talking about and will stand by what you say.
Exactly.
It's your responsibility.
Well, it's not really I'm not accusing anyone.
Yeah.
The World Bank has,
yeah.
The IMF has,
yes.
Al Jazeera has,
yes.
Investigative journalists have,
yeah.
A number of UN agencies have.
I mean, so what you're saying is that the evidence appears to be compelling.
It is absolute. It's
Right.
black and white. It's an open shut case. You
Right.
don't really need to investigate it. It's out there in the open.
Right.
The president has embezzled $1 million at least.
At the minimum.
At the minimum, because it's very clearly this money has gone into his accounts.
For all those interested in looking up about this, there is what I call a must-see on YouTube, and that is Paradise Stolen.
Stealing
Paradise. You need to watch that. Stealing, as in robbing, Stealing Paradise. It's on YouTube, and it makes for compelling viewing. And it is also spells a greater message for us here in Sri Lanka, where we are continually fighting corruption, which has clearly become endemic in this country. And we have politicians who continuously seem to be throwing it under this what has now become a very thick carpet, sweeping everything under the carpet. And it also has very serious repercussions, especially because we've been discussing the talk of the town, so to speak, has been the new Foreign Exchange Act and the somewhat draconian powers bestowed upon just the one minister, the minister in charge of the subject of the central bank. And when we listen to the rest of President Nasheed's story, we'll understand why our concerns are real and not just made up, just to make up news time and airtime and print time. President Nasheed, we've seen here compelling, what we appear to be compelling evidence of pallet loads of money being shifted out, flown into the Maldives, and then shifted out through private accounts outside the country again. There was one particular atoll that was supposed to be developed in what appeared to be an impossibly large investment of $1.5 billion. And somebody in Singapore was handling the transaction.
Yeah. Well, we've had a situation where criminal groups have been using our national accounts to launder large amounts of money.
Yes, your central bank appears to have been at the center.
The governor of the central bank at that time, as you would remember, seems to have written a number of letters regarding this transaction.
Yes.
And it looks like that all of them are very well into it.
Yeah.
We have not internally investigated the issue, but I understand that other agencies, the Homeland Security in the United States, and other forensic auditing departments are looking into this. I hope that there is a conclusive judgment on this, because this has a very negative impact on our economy. People lose faith in our banking system. And when people lose faith in our banking system and in our economy, the amount of investments that we get to the Maldives dwindles, it comes down, and therefore the impact on the economy is hard.
And just to remind our viewers that the Maldives, the per capita income in the Maldives, the 2016 figures anyway, was estimated at approximately $16,275. Now, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, if it was evenly and nicely divided.
Yes.
Unfortunately, as it happens, perhaps about 2% of the population would earn 98% of the wealth.
Just to put it in perspective, the per capita income in Sri Lanka is around just under $4,000. So the per capita in the Maldives is four times plus bigger than in Sri Lanka.
We are a little bit affluent in per capita terms,
Yeah.
But if you look at institutional development, if you look at democracy, the judiciary, the elections commission, and so on and so forth, and the political parties and the parliament here, we admire Sri Lanka so much. That you have been, you see, there's not a country that I have known who's been in conflict, in civil war for 20 odd years, and then still transfer power through peaceful political means.
Yes. Obviously you are an interested and perhaps even an avid observer of economics and politics in Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka as a whole. How important do you think, even in your country, has the role of the media been, of the independent media?
Well, we've always viewed the media as the fourth power of the state.
Right.
And I think it's very important that all politicians understand that. Scrutiny must be there. Transparency must be there. A free media is so important for development. It's just not only for good shows and entertainment, but this is so important for our development effort.
And putting it in purely Maldivian terms, the free media, the independent media, is what oxygen is to the divers who dive your shores.
Exactly. And then it's been suppressed in the Maldives very often. We have journalists being attacked, sometimes murdered, and
some disappeared.
Some disappeared, and the investigations are not happening. We've had two young writers, Rilwan and Yamin, we've lost them. They've been murdered, and the investigations are not proper, and we have not really brought anyone to the book on these murders.
Do you see some similarities happening here in Sri Lanka, where we've lost the Lasantha Vikramatunga, one of our presenters? In fact, the original Newsline. Was with
I used to work with Gamini Veerakun.
I see.
When I was much younger, I used to work as a journalist in Sri Lanka. So I do understand your predicament and your difficulties.
And our frustration.
And your frustrations. So in the Maldives, one of the most serious problem that we have is actually Islamic radicalism.
Right. Now that's another thing. Because terrorism funding is very important.
Yeah, this is a very serious thing. During the last so many years, a very narrow version of Islam has been propagated in the Maldives. That has created a breeding ground for jihadist movements. We have more than 300 Maldivians now fighting for the ISIS in Syria. Mm-hmm. This is the highest per capita from anywhere. So recruitment from the Maldives is very high.
Why do you think that some people in the Maldives are so receptive to being conquered by the tentacles of ISIS?
Well, this radical Islam and political Islam is an international phenomenon.
What is it that the youth there are missing that leads them towards this slippery road towards radicalism?
Well, they do have a liberation philosophy in it,
right.
as much as suppression. So I think the liberation philosophy of radical Islam is fairly attractive. And they are able to propagate it. Money, of course, is a conduit. Money is an attraction in many instances. People are paid handsomely when they go on jihad. And there are networks of people who are recruiting and who are able to pay this money.
Right.
So money is playing a big role, a big part in the recruitment.
And it must be very worrying to the global powers, because the whole world is as one when it comes to fighting terrorism. Global terrorism is almost a number one concern.
So we have this unfortunate situation where there is a deep state within the state of the Maldives. Now what I mean is the radicalists have lodged themselves, embedded themselves in strategic positions within the state. Within the military, within the police, within customs, immigration, education, strategic positions. And they are able to therefore influence state policy far more than any other group. They are able to identify their foes, they are judging them, and they are passing judgment, and they are executing them. And these investigations, these murders, are not investigated. They are unfounded. And so the situation, in the last 3 years, we've had 26 murders that have not been properly investigated.
And on that note, to further discuss trouble in paradise with President Mohammed Nasheed, the former head of state of the Republic of the Maldives, we will join you after this short break. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline, where you can send your questions 0772 300 305. Back to Newsline, where our guest this morning is former President of the Maldives, President Mohammed Nasheed. During our conversation, it turned out that President Nasheed was rather in agreement with the statement that an independent media is the oxygen of democracy, and or one vital component of that anyway. And we'd just like to make a quick reference to this, to a editorial in the state organ, the Daily News, this morning, which made me roll around in mirth, because they say that some media organizations are treating and or exaggerating the lapses of this government. Well, you know, if the Central Expressway, the attempt at the departure of process from that project, the departure from process of the central bank and Bondgate, and the departure from process in the obtaining or purchasing of fuel and the availability of fuel, if all these are mere exaggerations, then we stand guilty. But if those matters matter to you as the people of this country, and if all these things and this departure from procedure, if that matters to you, then continue watching all the private media that are bold enough to highlight these matters. They are not exaggerations. And like I said earlier in the week, we've earned our stripes. We know all about ethics. We don't need people with hidden agendas to lecture us on these basically accusations. So there we are. Back to trouble in paradise, and the looming crisis there, because President Yamin has now he's constitutionally bound to hold presidential polls, or the Elections Commissioner there must do that. But whilst we were talking about this, about the you know, where the Maldives has been conquered by corruption and autocracy, you all had the Auditor General, who was perhaps naive but did his job and highlighted various corruptions on one particular matter anyway, and wrote to the President. The President didn't do anything about it.
The President did. He fired him.
He fired, yes, he fired the Auditor General.
Yes.
Now, I wonder if Mr. Gandhi Vijay Singh is listening in on this program, because he is the Auditor General in Sri Lanka, and he too has been under fire from various political sides as to his integrity, his probity, and about the way he calculates his figures. But there's, you know, Auditor Generals all over the world have this innate ability, it's almost inherent and built into their DNA, to be coldly neutral.
Yeah.
And it does cause a bit of headache to their political masters there.
Well, it does, but there is a beauty in their numbers.
Right.
And because they deal in arithmetic and in numbers,
yeah,
it's very often very transparent. And it really, if you want to look after state funds, and these state funds are your funds, it's people's money.
It's the people's money.
It's the people's money. And the manner in which politicians look after that must be audited, and it must be controlled and monitored.
Yeah.
And I think independent institutions, the work that they do, we must commend them and we must encourage them. And I'm sure in Sri Lanka, this is far, it's operating in a far better manner than the Maldives can ever dream of. We envy you. You know, you could say,
but we are also concerned as to how we are doing, because we are not only interested in having a bar that's just 2 feet above the ground. Our bar is
higher,
very much higher, and we aspire to that. and we believe that we have a critical role to do that. We are the oxygen.
Well, of course there is. I mean, there's no doubt, and then you're doing it, and we could sense that. We could see this in this country, how the country has transformed in the last few years, how free media has been able to articulate.
But there's shocking details on how the I think it was the Vice President Adib, was in discussions with the head of SOS, the Special Operations Police in the Maldives, and they decided at one stage to bomb the Auditor General's building. Apparently, there's 200 people working there, and then they set fire to a media institution not once but twice. I think it was called Raja TV.
Yeah.
Now, that brought into my mind what happened to this network. And when we were bombed, we were Claymore bombed. By the way, Claymore bombs are not available in the Petah market. They're used by the armed forces in the fight against terrorism. But we were actually Claymore bombed. And needless to say, we continued like Raja TV did. But they were bombed all over again.
Well, they were bombed all over again. Media has been under attack by President Yameen's regime. The free media is unable to function. They've brought in a number of legislations and got them rubber stamped through the parliament. They've got the parliament occupied by the military, and they have also got 12 MPs been dragged to court yesterday, and then they've also gone ahead and removed 6 MPs from their seats. So there's so much happening, so much wrong happening in the Maldives.
Is there corruption on all sides of the political fences, if you like?
Well, we can't deny that. I mean, I should.
But your own party.
Well, we are all tainted by the same brush in a sense,
right.
But there are extents to which it can go. Right. We have never suppressed independent institutions from monitoring and auditing.
Right.
And we've been trying to be as transparent as possible. And I'm not going to say that we are 100% clean. No, we are not. And I don't think any political party can be. But we must allow the institutions to do their work.
Well, how do you feel? You are currently, if you like, a fugitive from justice. You've been given special permission to leave, I believe, for some treatment or whatever it is. But you haven't returned. You haven't returned. Why haven't you returned?
Well, first, the circumstances to my sentencing and the manner in which I was arrested and charged. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has deliberated on this, and they passed judgment. They said that it is completely politically motivated and the government of Maldives should release me. But no, the government has not agreed to proceed with or adhering to
Why did they want you out in the first place? Were you a pain in their side?
Well, the people of the Maldives seems to like me, and they keep on voting for me. Fortunately, I have been fortunate to receive their love and.
But perhaps it was the way they dragged you along the streets when they made that arrest. Maybe that sticks in the mind of the ordinary man and woman.
Yeah, but they don't want their political leaders to be pushed, shoved, for anyone for that matter. They don't want people to be shoved and pushed and dragged on the streets.
Indeed.
And so, of course, it didn't do any good.
So now, what's happening? Now, we're told that your sentence was decided not by the judges hearing your case, but the night before, the morning that it was due, the night before, your file was sent to, a letter was sent to President Yameen. And the driver, because it wasn't in an envelope, God bless him, he just had a little peek at it.
And a picture of it.
Yes, and a picture of
the letter.
I think he must be whistleblower number 1, and we'll give him an award. I'll give him an award. You come and stay, in Sri Lanka for a week. But that was amazing.
I'll tell him.
But yes, please do, because President Yameen has apparently made a change to that, and lo and behold, the next morning you were handed out a sentence of 13 years. Now, that stings, doesn't it?
Well, President Yameen has arrested every single opposition leader. Not only the opposition leaders, he has arrested his own defense minister, Colonel Nazim, and he arrested his own vice president, and he has attacked a number of his own ministers, and then he's arrested every single opposition leader, and then he wants to go into these elections after having done that. Now, it can't be inclusive, it can't be free and fair if choices of political parties cannot be candidates. So,
and what about you? Are you going back to participate in this?
I hope to go back, and I will go back. And
but what will happen? You will be arrested.
Well, they will. Hopefully not. Hopefully they will come to their senses, and there will be a greater international engagement to see that things go properly in the Maldives. It's not in the interest of anyone to see a failed state in the Maldives. It can't be in the interest of Sri Lanka or India to see the Maldives fail.
The people of the Maldives, the common man in the Maldives, are they really enjoying this $16,000 plus per capita GDP?
You know, they have a fair amount of the people have a decent life. But of course, the working classes are too big, and their hardship is obvious. And we would like to see wealth more evenly distributed.
Now, this program is incomplete in the last 3 minutes of it if I don't ask you this. You're famous for, well, we call it a stunt, but it was a wonderful stunt, the cabinet meeting underwater. It propelled you forward as one of the international leaders of this whole global warming business. And the particular problem that Maldives perhaps faces, will it really disappear? Will it get all submerged?
Well, climate change is real. It's not something in the future, and it is happening now. It's happening in the Maldives, it's happening in Sri Lanka. We could see the aberration, climate aberrations at least. Winds are coming at the wrong time, at the wrong speed. Rain is coming at the wrong time, to the wrong extent.
What will happen to the people of the Maldives?
Well, finally, at the end of the day, if the islands sink, we must find dry land elsewhere.
Where?
Well, somewhere. I mean, I couldn't. Where there is land and where there is common culture and where there is some amount of commonality.
Are you not having a project, something like the port city in Colombo and the Palms in Dubai, where you're reclaiming vast tracts?
Well, we are reclaiming some, and there is some amount of adaptation, and we do not know if reclaiming and making it higher is the way forward, or to find floating islands. Recently, when we were in government, Dutch Docklands have done some designs to this. I mean, Dutch they're good at holding water, and they've done some designs into islands that can float. When we were in government, we wanted to build prototype 5 islands of these. So we will hopefully still do that. But in my view, the most important adaptation measure is democracy.
And with the current setup in the Maldives, where one of your journalists said that all of this is attributed to the incapableness of an autocratic ruler there. Do you kind of agree with that?
Well, I mean, it's not.
Is it incapable? Unprofessional?
It's not incapable. It's just the way that they wanted it done. So they have, by design, they've done it. So it's not by mistake that they've.
It's not by omission. It is by design.
Yeah, it's by design. It's not by mistake that they've got the wrong end of the stick or got red.
On a scale of 1 to 10, and just as we come to the last question here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hopeful are you, President Mohamed Nasheed of the Maldives? How hopeful are you of a return to power?
100%.
100%.
100%.
President Mohamed Nasheed, we hope that you will indeed regain your mantle as President of the Maldives, and that you will champion the cause of the environment and retain the beauty and the allure of the Republic of the Maldives. Thank you very much for being on Newsline. We appreciate your presence, and It's marvelous that your drivers managed to get you here on time. I hope it takes you back to the hotel on time.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone in Sri Lanka.
Thank you. And that's the way it was on Newsline today, Wednesday, the 6th of December 2017. Take care. God bless.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.